everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I thought that I would show you how I make my pie crust. It's summertime now. We just had Memorial Day weekend and fresh berries and peaches and all kinds of things are going to be ready for pies. So let's get started and make the best pie crust ever. And it's easy. So first we need 3 cups of flour, and I do measure this pretty close, just always have, and it's always turned out. So guess I should have filled my flour container. Okay, there's our 3 cups of flour. And then next is 1.5 cups of shortening. I'm really trying to get away from using shortening. So I have palm fruit shortening. It's an organic product that I get from Azure Standard. And I've experimented with it, and it really does make actually a better flakier crust than shortening, but shortening is also very good in it. So if that's what you have, go ahead and use that. And then a teaspoon of salt. There we go. All right, and we're just going to blend this. Make sure that's right. Yep. We're just going to blend this until we have about the size of a pea. If you don't have a pastry blender, 2 knives works just as well. But this is working very well. I just finally got one of these, so I wanted to try it out. And I am going to put a link in the, or put the recipe in the description box below so that you'll be able to get this recipe. It's kind of an old-time recipe. It's got vinegar in it and an egg. Okay, let's get that off here. Okay, I think we're going to call that good. It's very well blended. It looks fantastic. Okay. Next we're going to, I'm just going to put a little well in the center here, because we're going to put 1 egg that's been slightly beaten. Let's see here. Alright, 1/2 cup of cold water. And 1 teaspoon of vinegar. All right, there we go. And then we are just going to mix this until just combined. We're not going to overmix. We're just going to make sure everything's in there. If you overmix it, your crust might end up hard or tough actually, so be careful with that. And if it's not all the way mixed, it's just fine, because what we're going to do now is pull out our cutting board. I'm just going to flour it. And then just turn it all out onto the board. So any flour mixture that's not incorporated with the liquid is going to be just fine, and it'll get incorporated. All right. Now this recipe says that if you're real good, you can get 3 crusts out of it, and that is true. However, I like just doing 2 crusts because I like mine a little thicker. So I have gotten 2 out of the recipe, but they were just a little too thin for me. Another thing I really like about this crust, it doesn't have to be refrigerated. You can mix it and roll it. And I do try to make sure that there's flour underneath it. See how nice that rolls out? It's just such an easy to work with crust. It's so flaky and tender, which really enhances your pie a lot. Okay. Let's go just a little bit bigger. Make sure that it's gonna fit into the pie plate okay here. All right, there we go. So, just gonna kind of work it, make sure it's not sticking to the board. And I'm going to fold it in half. Then I'm going to fold it in half again. Perfect. Then just lay it in there and then unfold it. There we go. Looks great. Okay, next, I like to trim it just below the edge of the lip of the pie plate. We'll just get this all done here. Okay, and then I'm just going to tuck this under. That'll make the edges look a little nicer. I'm not quite done with the edge, but just give me a little bit more thickness there on the edge to work with so I can do a decorative edge. Alright, almost made it all the way around. Alright, and then for the decorative edge, I put my thumb in there and my fingers out like that. So that's how I do mine, but I know that there's so many different ways. Do whatever works for you. And you always end up with a little funny spot. So now your pie crust is ready to have a pie filling put in that needs to be baked. And you're going to want to bake it at 425 degrees for about 40 minutes. You're going to want to test that as you go. But you can go ahead and put in like an apple pie filling, a cherry pie filling, a custard, however you'd like to do it. Or you can just go ahead and bake the crust as it is, and maybe you're going to put in a pudding filling or a fruit filling, a fresh fruit filling that's not baked. So this pie crust right now is ready for several different options. Maybe you're going to put chicken pie or make a chicken pie out of it. It could do that too. So we've got our 2 pie crusts done. Show those to you here real quick. There we go. And we do have some leftover dough. So there's a lot of different things you could do. Well, I don't know about a lot. A couple, at least. And one of those is just roll it out and put some filling in there and make some hand pies. And I did a video on hand pies, so I'll link that in the description as well. Or something that our family really likes is just rolling it out, putting it on a cookie sheet, get it on there here, and putting butter and cinnamon sugar on it and just baking it like that. Alright, next we're going to put some cinnamon sugar on here. Alright, and then we're also going to bake it for about, I'm going to check it at 20 minutes. I'm not quite sure how long it's going to take, but I'm going to bake it at 425 degrees. And let's get these in the oven. If you are baking a crust by itself, that's called blind baking, and you're going to want to put beads in it. There's special beads that you can put in here. It's going to keep the crust from getting bubbles in it. So if you don't have the pie beads, I believe they're called, you can just put a piece of parchment paper down in there. I'm going to do it on both of mine. That one wasn't quite big enough. And then you can just put dry beans in it. And that will, oh, they're called pie weights. That's what the beads are. This is just going to hold down the pie crust so that it doesn't get bubbles in it. Oh, I don't need that many. There we go. That's going to help our crust from getting some bubbles in it while we blind bake it. We'll see you when it's done baking. Our pie crust is out of the oven now, and as you can see, it just is so flaky. It did shrink quite a bit, if you will notice that. So what we could do differently is just trim the edges longer off the side, and then it would have more dough there on the sides. Something else is I took the beans out and realized that the crust underneath the beans wasn't quite done all the way, so I did put it back in for 10 more minutes. And this is what it turned out like. It just absolutely looks delicious. And then also, while that was baking, I baked just kind of the odds and ends of the crust, and I was just going to show you, just kind of cut into it here, show you how flaky that turns out to be. There we go. You can see just how flaky that crust is and how light, and it is so delicious. And it really adds a lot to the pie when the crust is good. And it will probably turn you into a pie snob because the crust is so delicious. So I hope you have a chance to make this, and please let me know what you think. It really is an absolutely delicious crust. Thank you so much.